Welcome to Lesson 9 in Excel for Busy Salespeople. This is creating an alias table, and I am Byron Holloway. So we've got our data. Everything's all nice and put together. Here we've got about 1,300 or 1,100 rows. And as we can see, when you get reports from multiple different distributors, oftentimes there'll be two or three ways to report the same customer, and I've highlighted a couple of the ones here. You can see I've got Dell reported two different ways. Here's United Probe reported two different ways. One is McKinney with a space in the middle. Here's McKinney without a space. Here's here's Cointerra LLC, Computer Rescue, Computer Rescue Inc. And we get that sort of thing all the time. So the question is, how can I combine all of these without a tremendous amount of work and then without having to go through and redo that every month when the next set of data comes in? Um, Certainly, I have no way to tell all the distributors to unify their reporting. So I have created what's called an alias table. So when I do this, the very first time, I'll take my all the raw data like this, and I'll just copy it, Control C. Now, here I've already jumped ahead and I've created a table called alias. So I would just paste it here, Control V, and then I will sort it. I'll go through the same actions just so you can see it. So there's Control V, and then I'll do data. I'll just sort that from A to Z, and you can see I'm left with the same sort here. And again, since they were colored already on this site, when I bring them over here, they remain colored. So that just helps me point out for the purposes of this exercise. So then I automatically take this same list, now that it's sorted alphabetically, and I just paste it over here to my alias table. So right now, everything starts off with the same name on both sides. So everything's the same. Then I go through and say, okay, I've got Cointerra and Cointerra LLC. How do I want them to show up in my own report? So in this case, I just chose Cointerra for both. Here I chose Computer Rescue for both. Here I chose Dell Computer Notebooks for both. And then here I chose United Probe McKinney. So I just chose one of the spellings. Again, I could call it something completely different. And this is also really helpful when you have a customer that gets purchased. We have a customer here. They used to be called Joy Global. They used to be called Laterno. Then they were called Joy Global, and now they're called Komatsu. And each distributor may report it as one of those three iterations or something entirely different. So if I have something that's reported in one way, I can completely change how it shows up on my list. So now let's go back to our data, and I've added an extra column to my data, to my pivot table, and I've called that column alias. So how do I tell this I want to look up from this table? So I've created a simple lookup formula that is VLOOKUP. What value am I looking up? In this case, it looks like D109. Oh, there we go. So here I've started at VLOOKUP. I'm going to start at D3. Where am I looking? What am I looking up? Which is here. Where am I looking it up at? So here it goes from A2. In this case, I went a couple of rows down to B140, so I have some room to grow. I could go down to 200, 500, doesn't really matter. It's always helpful to add a little buffer, because what'll happen if you're not careful, you'll add things and add things and add things, and you get down to the bottom of your table, and you forget to go back and change the formula. So I might even change this to B200. That's 2000. There we go. So now that gives me plenty of room to grow as different people add names and so on and so forth. So now I could grab my skinny plus and drag down, but since there's what 1100 rows here, that would take me a while. So I'm going to Control C. I can go down here to the bottom. This is one of those things where knowing how to navigate with keyboard shortcuts. So I'm going to press Control down arrow. That's going to take me to the bottom of this list. You can now see I'm on row 1132. Now I will start here, Control Shift up arrow. There was already something in that one space which I'm going to overwrite, and that takes me all the way back up to my original selection. So now it says here, choose destination and press enter, or choose paste. So I'm just going to paste it, Control V. And now all of these have shown up. So I'm going to go back to my pivot table. I've got to make sure now that my pivot table, I'm going to look at my data source. All right, so my data source doesn't include my alias. So I'm going to have to extend that over. Now it already starts at A2, which is fine. I'm just going to have to press and hold the shift button and click here. Now it goes to S1132. I certainly could type that in, but I think it's easier and more intuitive to click on it. So I'm going to click OK. Make sure I refresh, and you can see over here in my pivot table field list, I have a new selection called Alias. So again, I've got two Dells. Ordinarily what I would do is just, instead of I'll take the end customer out and drop the alias in, but I want to show these side by side for right now. So I'll put the alias in, and then when I go down, you'll see I have one United probe that covers two United probes. I have one Cointerra that covers two Cointerras, one Computer Rescue that covers two, and one Dell that covers two. So now that all that is correct, I can actually just take out the end customer listing, and here's all my data. Go to pivot table and collapse the entire field, and there is everything with one unified reporting system. Now, next month, when I get a new set of data, I can go in and add that down here at the bottom of my list. Of course, I'm going to have to change my pivot table range again. But sooner or later, you will get, so if I'm going to do this here, I'm just for giggles, let's just pretend it's a new month. I've added some new data, and I've got a new customer, Lockheed Martin Missile Camden. All right, so now you can see I've got an NA on my alias. So what will happen is you'll have all your customers listed, and then you'll have a customer that shows up as NA. And that just tells you, oh, I've got a customer that doesn't have an entry on the pivot table list or on the alias list. So I'm going to go here, copy this, put it over here in the alias, Control V, and then what do I want to call it? Well, in this case, there's no reason to call it anything other than what it is. So now I've got that there, and when I go back, you can see I've got it here, and if I refresh let me give this a bigger value real quick. So just for giggles, I've added a big number so it'll show up towards the top of the list. I'm going to go to my pivot table, change data source, make sure that I include the new row, click OK. I'm going to refresh it. And then, let's see, I put it in for $10,000. So I'll sort this from largest to smallest. And there's $10,000. And then there's my Lockheed Camden, Arkansas that we just entered. So there you go. That's how to create an alias table and also how to keep it up to date as your data changes month to month. So thanks very much. That's going to wrap up the alias table section. So our next one will be creating dynamic ranges. So come back. Thanks.